geht um einen SS-Oberst, der sich 1945 in einer Hütte im Wald versteckt vor den Dämonen seiner Vergangenheit, aber diese Dämonen holen ihn ein. Ist ein Horrorfilm ein Drama mit Horrorfilmelementen. Jetzt habe ich's.
Der war für uns alle drei sehr persönlich, in unterschiedliche Richtungen persönlich, einfach auch von unserer Hintergrund-Background-Geschichte aus familiär bezogen. Ich komme aus einer jüdischen Familie, aber auch aus einer katholisch-deutschen Familie. Das heißt, ich habe so ein bisschen die beiden Mischungen gehabt und bei euch war es auch anders.
Ja, einfach weil ich mit meinen Großeltern, mit Leuten, mit ZeitzeugInnen irgendwie die interviewt hatte, zwischendurch mal viel im Rahmen meiner Schule auch und da immer das Gefühl hatte, dass da was schlummert und eine gewisse Scham auch oft ist und über vieles nicht geredet wird und da ist einfach mein Wunsch aufgekommen, darüber was zu machen zu dem Thema.
Das ist mein Vater, genau, richtig, genau. Das kommt noch hinzu, der ist Schauspieler und Theaterregisseur, genau, und mit dem haben wir zusammengearbeitet. Einfach aus dem Grund, weil wir das familiär behalten wollen. Wir kennen uns auch zu dritt, also wir drei Regisseure kennen uns auch schon seit kleinen Kindern oder Kindheitstagen. Und ja, wir wollten das zusammen machen und wir wollten das mit meinem Vater zusammen machen, weil der uns auch guten Input gegeben haben. Wir haben zusammen die Figur entwickelt und das hat einfach super gepasst. Ja. Ja, uns war das sehr wichtig, einen sehr atmosphärischen Film zu kreieren, der wenig mit Worten auskommt. Und da war uns klar, und natürlich auch nur mit einer Person spielt, was ja auch schon mal schwierig ist, ein Setting, ein Mensch. Und wir wollten halt dadurch durch die Bildsprache halt viel erzählen und viele Ebenen mit reinbringen und auch so ein bisschen die Atmosphäre schon mal ziemlich klar setteln und sagen, hier, da sind wir. Und das war uns einfach total wichtig, über die Bildsprache, aber auch über die Musik sehr viel einfach diese Geschichte tragen zu können.
Was wir festgestellt haben, also ich zumindest mit Gesprächen mit Zeitzeuginnen, dass da halt immer sehr wenig eher gesprochen wird oder um den heißen Brei herum und deswegen umso weniger Worte unser Film hatte, umso mehr ist es auch treffend für dieses Thema, finde ich persönlich. Und immer wenn er redet, mit Ausnahme von dem Lied, dann redet er über belanglose Dinge, liest seinem Hasen vor oder also es ist eher genau, und diese Idylle, in der wir unsere ZuschauerInnen erstmal so locken wollen, so ein bisschen, dass die dann auch umso stärker aufgebrochen wird und man sich dann so ein bisschen auch verarscht vorkommt, wenn man dann so ist, so okay, krass, damit habe ich jetzt nicht gerechnet. Und dass wir auch so was Märchenhaftes erzählen, so eine Welt, die er sich so aufgebaut hat irgendwo so ein bisschen, die so in seinem Kopf ist. Ja, ich weiß nicht, du hast auch schon mit deinem Bewerbungsfilm damals an der Uni, du bist sehr maskenaffin.
Ja, das stimmt. Also Masken ist nicht nur ich, sondern auch der Julius, der ist eigentlich Kunststudent. Und nicht nur eigentlich, er ist immer noch Kunststudent und er macht viel mit Masken und mit Gesichtern und das fasziniert ihn sehr. Und er kam auch mit dieser Idee. Er hat die auch alle selber geschnitzt, die ganzen Masken, die wir auch in dem Film sehen. Und wir haben zu dritt mal in einem Heimatmuseum in Münster, da wo wir herkommen, diesen BANNKORB entdeckt, den es wirklich halt so gibt. Das ist halt dieser Bienenkorb mit dieser Maske drauf, was halt fratzenartige Gesichter oder Gesichtszüge haben soll. Und das diente damals zur Abschreckung einfach.
Also noch kurz zur Erklärung, das ist ein Bienenkorb mit einer geschnitzten Holzmaske drauf, für die den Film nicht gesehen haben, wo aus den Augen und dem Mund die Bienen rausfliegen können.
Genau. Ja,
und das diente halt als Abschreckung im 17. Jahrhundert, wie du sagst, aber auch zur Abschreckung vor Dämonen und Geistern im Aberglauben. Und das hat unsere Geschichte so inspiriert.
El Grito, The Scream, is my last short film. It's like a fantasy magical realism film about three characters that meet in a cornfield and something terrible happens. I like gaps in stories. I like gaps that you as a member of the audience can fill. And I wanted the short film to feel like it's like a tiny fragment of a bigger movie that you don't get to see. So you have to imagine that bigger movie, where this girl comes from, where the two characters are at the end, and at the end, where are they going to go, or what is going to be their relation. I like the audience to make their own movies in their head. I knew this actress before. I made a couple of short films with her. She's so talented. Her eyes, her look, it's very powerful. So it's great for a short film without dialogue. I need like someone who has this charisma, someone who you want to look at. So she's great. And I hope she has a great career in film. Because we have a limited pre-production time. It's like I wrote the script and we made the pre-production of the short film in like a week. She came to shoot the short film and I met with her like the day before the shooting. She didn't have much chance to define the character on her own, so I had to explain to her. And yeah, I gave her like a backstory for the character in order for her to know what she's been into. And I really like this kind of characters. Almost all of my films contain these main characters that are like outsiders, like people that don't fit in society. I like that very, very, very much.
Hi, I'm Tony Hipwell. I'm the writer-director of The Law. It's a micro-short about a fisherman who discovers very quickly he's not the only one hoping to hook something. I'm not sure, well, I mean, I suppose you can specialise in anything you want to in film, but I think, yeah, micro-short is, I believe, anything that's sub 2 minutes, really. I know there's a few people who classify under 5, but it seems to be like, for the most part, it's anything kind of up sub 2 minutes. I went for 90 seconds on this one just because there's a film competition called Depict that I've been inspired by a few of my friends. I'm always really impressed by micro-shorts, particularly just how much, not just narrative, but thematic you can kind of manage to carry over in such a short time frame. So that was something that I was really feeling like a personal challenge to myself to see, like, could I achieve something successfully in that time frame. I think it's something that's really good to do just generally, because I think you can fall into a lot of traps as a filmmaker over time. I've done a few features and I've done shorts, and they tend to be 10 to 15 minutes in length, and you can fall into certain kind of I know, like bad habits, I think, when you're not worrying too much about runtime, and I think it's good to kind of question those sort of biases you have. To paraphrase Scorsese, he says, shorter is harder, and I think with micro shorts it's even harder. So it was something that was a really good exercise to make me just really rethink every sort of aspect, because it's not just the length of the script, it's how you're going to compose your frame, what's happening in those individual shots, how those are going to cut together, the sound design, everything has to be just fitting together like a Swiss watch, and that was something which was really true all the way through the production. I had to completely reconsider, like, just even the first 5 shots when I got it onto my edit timeline. I was immediately at 30 seconds after 4 or 5 shots. So I thought, shit, okay, let's back to the drawing board, let's rethink this. Like, what's the exact kind of order of shots we need to kind of convey the information that the audience needs and as succinctly as possible. So yeah, it's a really great exercise in brevity and efficiency. I love absurdity humor. I love stuff which has a certain kind of break in everyday logic, but it doesn't have to be particularly knowable. It's interesting, the shorts kind of had some kind of interesting notes from people who've seen it that they feel it reminds them of folklore and of cosmic horror, which I think is very appropriate, because there's a certain kind of horrible knowability about what happens to the character, but it's within a very recognisable scenario. But I like that in terms of just the setting itself. If we think about it from the point of view of the fish, it's a very weird experience being hoinked out of your environment by something that they don't understand, and that's something which happens to our characters as well. And I think that's kind of the fun of it as well, like taking, yeah, as you say, that very normal, almost mundane, or meant to be very peaceful, enjoyable pastime, and turning it into something that is utterly bizarre. I don't know if I'm going to do another micro short. I think the trick was finding an idea. I knew I wanted to do one, and this one kind of came together almost by accident in my head. I was having a writing sprint with my partner, and it just kind of popped out of my head. I think it's just a case of what kind of sort of inspiration comes along. If I was to do another micro short, I certainly wouldn't say no to the opportunity again, because as I said before, I think it's a very fun experience in terms of keeping your filmmaking skills sharp. In terms of what I'm doing next, I've just wrapped on a found footage short film project, which is also got a crossover with a game. It's going to have a kind of really interesting sort of interactive component to it. And I've just completed a first draft of what I hope to be my next feature film. I know a lot of filmmakers who kind of draw this hard line in the sand and say, like, no, we're done, features only now. But I like moving back and forth between them. I think if an idea is engaging, you should just do it. We're going to get to 90 minutes next, but then I'll probably then go back to 90 seconds. Yeah, I'll just yo-yo.
It's a 3-minute short. We were trying to see if we could tell a complete story in 3 minutes, and it's a story of a guy who has a dark and mysterious background as a hobby, but it turns out that he's actually a professional clown who entertains at kids' parties. and the film is about showing the transition from his hobby to his profession. Well, they're actually, the theme was actually combined between what you see and what you hear. Towards the end, there's a transformation where he goes from one persona to the other. And so visually, we were using very close-up shots to very slowly pull out and reveal what you were actually seeing. So we wanted the audience to be a little bit confused about what was happening. And we did the same with the music, where it was very disorienting, very dissonant, very uncomfortable, and stress-creating. And then there's a point where there's a transition in silence, and then he makes his appearance in his day job, and the music is entirely different. Now it's a typical clown carnival type piece of music that would be suitable for entertaining children. So it's very dark and mysterious, and then very traditional clown at the end. I had to do some research to figure out what carnival and circus and clown music sounded like. So I had written a few tunes that would possibly be used, but I primarily write to picture. So while I had those tunes, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to use them. And then we go through the back and forth of the rough edits and then the picture lock. And then I really tune what I've got to the final picture lock. In this particular one, I actually introduced a mysterious little clown tune about halfway through that, but with the combination of the images and what you're hearing, you might begin to think maybe he is a clown, but I still don't know what's happening here. I thought that might be the end, the happy part, but I chose to keep it for the dark, crazy part. But yeah, to answer your question, definitely picture rough cuts and then picture lock and then music finalize. I find myself very much visually inspired. I don't know that I could sit and write something without having seen something first. I did a noir project recently where I did a bunch of research and I wrote some little noir music that I wasn't sure if we could use it or not. I was just really experimenting. And it turned out it fit for a particular section, but that's unusual. I do a lot of study and preparation for the genre and then really write to picture. I don't know if everybody does that way, and I don't have a lot of composer friends to ask those questions, but that's what seems to be working for me.
It's a psychological thriller, dark psychological thriller, very intense, I think. I love watching with a crowd because then you really know what parts are working and what's not. I love watching it, and I'm so excited about the crowd in Hardline. Fantastic festival, so it's going to be really exciting to see. And it's a home invasion thriller. Yeah, it's just exercise in suspense, I think. I didn't get to do a lot of the things I wanted to do because even though we were careful and we recce'd the location a lot, when it came to the actual shooting, there was a lot of problems in terms of the confines. But I was also very lucky because a lot of the time in movies where it's supposed to be a confined space, it's a huge house, you know, and it's like that makes sense in terms of shooting. But there's not a lot of claustrophobia. Claustrophobia is something I really wanted to create in the film. There's no shots outside. There's no establishing shot. There's nothing outside the house. I always wanted to be inside the house and more confined. Like you can't get out of the house, so you can just experiment and do everything you can within this sort of limited zone, you know. So I think the shoot was fun, you know, and we got to do a lot of the things we'd set out to do. So it has its ups and downs, of course, but there's nothing like that sort of confined horror movie in one location. I actually kind of just wanted to do something because the way the film unfolds, it's got a sort of a domestic violence kind of theme in there, which makes sense when you watch it. And I kind of just thought, we have a lot of slasher films, a lot of masked killers and this kind of stuff. I wanted to do something that really brings it home, literally, in terms of like when this really happens, when we have people being hunted down and killed, what's most likely? Often it's got a sort of a male insecurity explosion kind of thing. The male roles, men insecure, acting out violently, things like that, against women and so on. And it's very ugly and very intense. And I thought, take that and take this kind of blunt force idea of like, this is what really happens in a sense, and then just experiment with the form of the filmmaking to make something that I think is a very unique experience, you know. I'm always pitching feature films. I've got loads of feature films. They're generally more sort of elevated in the sense of being sci-fi, tinted did horror in terms of like, I've got a time travel horror, I've got a monster sci-fi horror. Again, I say low-key sci-fi, generally sort of thriller structures, things like this. So this is much more grounded in realism, you know. But I just, in terms of the setups and in terms of just being able to execute suspense and very sort of heavily controlled and mapped out set pieces and so on, I suppose in a way you would say it's a sort of a showcase, and I wanted to show the directorial skill in those areas.